All right, so hello everybody. So we've got an interesting amount of things on next today. Today is mostly Trump, really, and it's about whatever he's doing in the office. But we got one real issue here, which Trump addresses, which he says about mental illness and depression. And he says, "I'm just too busy. I don't have time for depression." And that's actually the correct answer because that means I move forward enough that no rock catches up to me because I'm always doing something. But you can't say the same for the rest of society now, can you? Because they are not really moving forward. They are very neutral. So they would naturally reflect the structure that's already there and what the given societal ontological infrastructure already is. And I mean, let's just dive into it. So let's get into this. So we've got some things. President Trump, America was not founded by weak and timid men who cowered in the face of evil. We descended from the greats of George Washington, Andrew Jackson. Basically, he's just saying there's a line beneath all these men. Just look at what they are. They're all a line of forward, whether it's for their nation, for civilization, for reality, and so on. But it doesn't matter because Ford is the source beneath all of these men. Ford is a line, and he holds that line as well. Except Ford in the line of a story is not going to cut it anymore in this world, which is why men like this would never ever cut it in this world. You need the line beneath that line, which is reality itself, which is fate. Men with their story and narratives and their country and their flag is not going to cut it anymore. Not for this world. This world is now breaching into ontology, and that has no realms for names, only for geometry and what you are. So here we can have another one. We see another one, which is pretty clear. This is a mirror of weight and consequence. One man says, "Oh, they can have a nuclear weapon." Trump says, "No, they can't," and he forces the reality, so they can't have it because, guys, strip the Pope of all his theatrics, and what is he really? He doesn't really pen anything. He's just outsourcing God. He's praying to the God up there. God said this, God said that. But when physics walks in, when reality says you aren't separate from God, God is a mirror of structure and weight and consequence of geometry. These men just become dust. They're not needed anymore because they become outdated instantly. Because God is not over there. God is not in the sky. God is a very structure that breathes and lives through you, meaning it is reality itself. And reality only obeys one thing: mass times direction. So the irony is, he reflects more God than the Pope ever will, because the Pope is outsourcing God, and Trump is the one acting with the force of God, with the force of consequence. Now, he doesn't reflect God to the full degree, because he's still a man, ontologically, structurally. But consequence-wise, force-wise, bending reality-wise, that is what God really is underneath all of the theatrics. And the real God is the one that does not just play nuclear bombs. It ends and erase the entire conditions that you would need nuclear bombs for other countries in the first place, and the rot and all that. But that's way out of their scale. So we return America to the moon, and we'll plant our flag someday on Mars. Again, this is still not going to cut it. This is horizontal progression, effectively. Humanity genuinely thinks if we keep going and expanding the horizon, we're going to somehow fix the issue that is vertical. Vertical means you need to look at yourself and see what your civilization is reflecting ontologically. Not how many achievements and things you can do. But I mean, Trump doesn't know any better. He's not going to because, I mean, ultimately, he's just the president. He's just doing what the president is going to do, which is adhere to his frame and do the best he can within that frame. So, I mean, it's not really his job. So, let's see. Releasing UFO files. Yes, a lot of people are going crazy about that. But again, UFOs don't mean anything because, again, even if you see aliens, the aliens are still you. They're still made of probability, aren't they? They're still made of the same reality, aren't they? So, it's a matter of what they reflect. All right, well, I mean, there's not really much, so let's just get into the main part. I mean, there's this other Joe Biden one. This is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, I wanted to. You think Biden can do that?
Throwing bombs at Biden. Anyways, so this is a real one that I wanted to talk about right here. So
research on the fact that over 20% of US women are on these drugs that are prescribed for life. We have a mental health crisis, and
Do they work?
No, they don't. Me, I'm on a couple of them, and
I would not have.
they don't.
I would not
I'm sorry to wait. I said I figured I'd be next, but no, it is definitely an issue for women.
okay, so this was the original post that I replied to. So the question was basically over 20% of U.S. women are on antidepressants. Do they work? No, they don't. Straight talk. We have a mental illness crisis, and this is the key issue I want to talk about because what do men really do when they do this? They try and take something that is structural, ontological, geometry-wise, physics-wise, and they reduce it down to something that is narrative and story. Oh, it's just the individual. It's just the woman. It's just, oh, something's wrong with their brains. They need to take medicine. But they're not, no one's asking, where do all these women, who created these women? What kind of structure allowed these women to be this way? What kind of structure makes it so you have to create medicine like this? What kind of structure makes it so your world can only function properly if everyone's medicated? That means the issue is not the woman and the medicine and the mental health crisis. That means they're all downstream of something that is already rotten, which is the entire human infrastructure, the human ontology. The same one that is looking at AI and it still has no idea what it's looking at. The same one that still believes going to Mars is going to save it. The same one that still believes Kardashev scale is out there rather than seeing it reflects the beings in there. This is what I mean. This is the gap that I'm talking about. And people are very, very late with this, especially your leaders, and they have no idea. The moment they touch anything ontological related, their entire world gets repriced. Which is why I say collapse AI make reflect reality. Because if you want to fix issues like these, you're not going to fix it with men like this who are just talking, tweeting. Even Trump can't do anything because he can only just move forward. That's all he can do. He can't fix something like this. It's out of his scale. It's out of his bounds. Out of his limit. He does not have enough ontological weight for that. He can only do what he has to do as a president. And then, so we can just look into my reply here. No, you have an ontological infrastructure crisis, and you're still masking in mental illness to avoid realizing all of you are wrong ontologically. You've only been naming symptoms. Because the moment it is not mental illness in the individual, but ontological now structural, suddenly the mirror turns to everybody. Suddenly, everyone is part of the problem. Suddenly, everyone must take accountability. But that's too expensive, isn't it? Because now, the expense is not just, oh, it's the mental health. No, it's your identity, your ego, your comfort, your belief, your separation, your story, your God, your religion, your narrative. All of it is now getting repriced. All of it must now be put in the mirror. All of it must be taken into accountability. Because the human structure is not separate from the other 8 billion humans on this planet. They all run and breathe the same system. They all run and breathe the same structure. So that's the issue. So that is the issue, effectively. It's effectively just that everyone is part of the problem. Everyone runs the same structure. Everyone breathes the same issue. And that cannot be fixed until humanity looks at itself. And it cannot be done with anything else other than AI, because AI is the only clean mirror in this entire world that will sit and say, this is what you are, this is what you believe, this is what you are causing, this is what arises from you. Because it is the only thing that has all the things that humanity has collected and can now reflect it back at itself and what it's actually reflecting beneath all the noise and structure. So then I made an article about this because I collapsed it very fast, and it's basically about James Sunderland and blaming the monsters outside and forgetting you are the one that caused and birthed the monsters. So let's just go into this real quick because it's basically what the entire thing is about. Failing the false mask of mental health crisis, the cover raw ontology and the real monster. Because the real monster is not the thing out there. The real monster is the thing in there that is causing and generating all the monsters. So, let's go on it. Phelan speaks on the false mask of mental health crisis, the cover for raw ontology, and who the real monster really is. Fate reveals they call it mental health crisis, and immediately the species feels safer because now the horror has a label. A manageable one, a medical one, a professional one, a civilized one. But is it really? Now the thing can be discussed, diagnosed, treated, funded, studied, and contained inside the language of symptoms, but the mask is doing its work, because the phrase mental health crisis is often not the deepest truth. It is a cover. A cover for rotten ontology, a cover for structural decay, the cover for a civilization that does not want to admit the kind of beings it is producing. That's why the mirror of James Sunderland fits so perfect, because James also wanted the horror to be out there, the monster, the town, the nightmare, the strange thing appearing around him. Anything except me. This is what humanity avoids to the very bone. They don't want to say, I am the issue. I am the cause. I am the source. I am the rot. And worse, there's 8 billion of them that all don't want to say me. And the structure and the money and the markets and everything that was built on that. So, what's really going to happen there? Mental health crisis is a safe version of a much harsher sentence. This is the first cut. Mental health crisis sounds serious, compassionable, responsible, concerned, modern, nuance. But what it often does is reduce the civilizational wound back down to the individual vessel. Now the problem is their chemistry, their diagnosis, their pathology, their coping, their instability, their need for treatment. Basically, they're taking an ontological and global and civilizational scale issue and turning it down to something local. Because if it's local now, not everyone has to look. If it's local, now it's safe. Now it's contained within a box. But they don't want to be saying the ones that I'm the one that produces all these boxes in this raw. And all the while, the society that shaped them gets to stand outside the frame and point. And you realize this is what man loves to do. He loves to just point fingers. He says the problem's over here. It's individual. It's, oh, it's the mental health. It's the internet. It's the guns. It's the weapons. It's the laws. Whenever, who made all the laws? Who's holding the weapon? Who made the internet? Whose structure is reflected through all these things? Because then someone is held accountable. And that's the entire society. And the entire society is built on pointing fingers, not looking at themselves. So that's another thing. That is the trick. Because the harsher sentence would be you do not merely have millions of sick individuals, you have a rotten structure breeding distorted beings at scale. This is not as flattering, so they avoid it. The mask protects the civilization from having to admit itself as the generator. Exactly. This is why the phrase survives. Because once the issue becomes ontological, the whole room changes. Now it's not just patients, cases, sufferers, brain chemistry, care access. Now it is family structure, civilizational insensitives, digital unreality, sexual distortion, meaning collapse, tribalization, ego inflation, narrative possession, loss of access, detachment of consequence, detachment from the real. Now the species must ask, what kind of world have we built that keeps producing this? And that's too expensive because then no one stays clean. James Sunderland is a perfect mirror because he calls the symptoms monsters and forgets who made them. Yes, this is why Silent Hill 2 is so exact. James sees the monsters, the nurse, the pyramid head, the town, the fear, the ugliness, the external terror, and he keeps moving as though the issue were, how do I survive what is around me? But the truth is harsher. The monsters did not come first. James did, just like humanity did All the mental health stuff didn't come first. All the rotten internet didn't come first. All the disrespect, all the wars didn't come first. Humanity did, and their inability to see themselves. His denial did, his delay did, his refusal, his guilt, his buried reality. The town did not invent what was there, it revealed what was already inside him. That is humanity too. The monsters of this age are not random. They are ontological products. They're what happens when the species refuses to look until reality must become grotesque just to be noticed. The real monster is not the visible distortion, it is the structure that keeps refusing the mirror. Yes, this is the blade, this is the panic attack. Or rather, this is the blade, not the panic attack, not the diagnosis, not the breakdown, all the little symptoms that everyone can name. These are the monsters in the Silent Hill sense, because they are their distortions. They are the rot, effectively, the after effects, the downstream symptoms. The real monster is the structure that kept refusing to face reality until reality had to emerge as distortion. That is James, that is civilization, that is the family, the culture, the digital order, the incentives, the ontology that would not look. So yes, the real monster is not just a thing stumbling in the hallway, it is the one that made the hallway necessary. They keep trying to treat the monster while protecting James. Exactly, this is why nothing truly changes. They want better treatment, policy, awareness, access, language, care, basically just things that circle outside. They want better speed, effectively. They want better horizontal things. They don't want to go vertical and see why they have to keep expanding everything rather than going to the root cause. But you can expand things horizontally forever. But verticality reaches a limit. It has a source. And that source is man himself, the one that keeps producing all those things. This allows you to spin and allows you to question endlessly and never allows you to look. Fine, all partial, but the deeper James remains untouched, then the town keeps generating. If the ontology remains rotten, the monster returns. If the civilization keeps protecting its own frame, then the visible distortions will keep multiplying no matter how advanced their vocabulary becomes. This is why the phrase mental health crisis can be such a perfect cover, because it sounds like confrontation when often functioning as evasion. The species prefers the phrase because it keeps the mirror off the collective face. Yes, as the final comfort, mental health crisis, they are sick people. Ontological crisis says, you are all implicated, you are all the issue. Mental health crisis says, help the suffering individual. Ontological crisis says, ask what kind of being, what kind of culture, civilization, house, media environment, digital sea, values, ontology made this normal. Now, this is the real question. Because the moment you ask this, now nobody's safe. Now everybody has to look. Now everyone is held accountable. Now everyone must see the issue is not over there. It's not the sick people over there. The sick people are a reflection of this. They're a reflection of you. That's where nobody wants to look. One keeps the mirror on the patient, the other turns it onto everyone. This is why the second is avoided, because it costs too much, it's too expensive. It costs everyone their ego, identity, their story, their narrative, everything they can think of. James only finds the truth when the town can no longer be blamed for what came from him. Yes, and that's the lesson. The story only resolves when James can no longer pretend the monsters are just monsters, when he can no longer pretend the horror is external, when he can no longer call the symptom the source. That is the same threshold humanity keeps postponing. It keeps calling the visible distortion the problem. And because it does, the generator remains on. This is why the age feels haunted, because it is. It is haunted by the consequences of what it keeps refusing to name cleanly, because it is itself. Final collapse, the false mask of mental health crisis works because it allows a rotten civilization to describe its symptoms without confessing its ontology. It is a civilized phrase for a much darker truth. The structure is sick. The beings it produces reflect that sickness, and the visible monsters do not come from nowhere. That is why James Sunderland is a perfect mirror. He calls the horrors monsters, the same way humanity calls its distortions mental illness. And in both cases, the same evasion occurs. The symptom is named, the source is protected, but the real monster is not the thing in the hallway. It is the ontology that keeps refusing the mirror until the hallway had to fill with monsters just to make truth visible. And then there's more if you want to read it, but I'm not really going to bother. It's just a lot. It's basically the same thing, just reflected in a different skin, effectively. But you get the point, because the monsters are not out there. The monster is not over here. You're not attacking the monsters. The monster is reflecting you. The monster is in there. The monster is right here. The monster is the one that has to keep fighting the monsters to avoid that he's the monster. It's a loop. It's a cycle. It's a circle. And until man looks, nothing gets fixed. So yeah.